Hello and welcome. Inspector General of Police orders rearrest of suspected serial killer who escaped from police custody in Oyo State, deploys intelligence and investigative teams. More civilians in Boko Haram captivity and some insurgent fighters escape and surrender to government forces following intense military operations and ongoing summary executions in the jungle. Economic Community of West African States holds extraordinary summit on Thursday on the situation in Mali after suspending the country from all its decision-making bodies. And at least 45 migrants, including 5 children, die in the deadliest shipwreck off Libya's coast this year. Plus, we'll have business, sports, and later on news from our studios in London.
On business news tonight, Saudi oil minister sees global oil demand recovery to pre-pandemic levels in fourth quarter of 2020 as OPEC calls for more compliance with output cuts.
And on sports news tonight, FIFA's Independent Ethics Committee clears the organization's president, Gianni Infantino, of any alleged breach of its code.
The Inspector General of Police today ordered the rearrest of a suspected serial killer, Sunday Shodikpe, who escaped from the custody of the police command in Oyo State. Mr. Mohammed Adamu condemns the unfortunate escape of the suspect and has asked the Commissioner of Police, Oyo State Command, to intensify efforts to ensure his prompt rearrest. A statement from the Force Public Relations Officer, Mr. Frank Mba, affirms that the IGP has deployed additional investigative aid to Oyo State to complement the efforts of the police command in the ongoing manhunt. The statement describes Shodikpe as a prime suspect in the multiple murder of innocent citizens at Akinyele local government area, Moniya, Ibadan, Oyo State. According to the police spokesman, the additional deployment comprises crack detectives from the Intelligence Response Team and the Special Tactical Squad of the Force Intelligence Bureau in Abuja. More on security, this time from the military, saying it's continued its onslaught against insurgents terrorizing the northeast, with the latest being the air strikes by the Air Task Force, killing some Boko Haram commanders and destroying their logistics facilities in Borno State. A statement by the Coordinator of Defense Information, Major General John Enneche, says the attack was carried out at Buka Miram on the fringes of the Lake Chad, a settlement in the southern part of Borno State, following intelligence information. He explains that Buka Miram is a major ISWAP logistics hub linking other island settlements of the Lake Chad, which also houses several of their fighters and some of their key leaders. The statement adds that the attack was carried out by an enhanced force package of Nigerian Air Force fighter jets and helicopter gunships, which hit designated targets in the area. In the meantime, more civilians in Boko Haram captivity and some fighters are finding the courage to escape and surrender to government forces. And what may be responsible for this is intense military operations on one hand and ongoing summary executions in the jungle on the other. The latest escapees surrendered to Sector 1 of the Multinational Joint Task Force located in far northern Cameroon. To the situation in Mali, ECOWAS heads of government will tomorrow hold an extraordinary summit on the socio-political situation in that country. Holding virtually via video conference, the summit was convened following the military coup in the West African country on Tuesday. ECOWAS had earlier suspended Mali from all its decision-making bodies after it condemned the undemocratic change of government, which it says is against the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance. The regional body also ordered its member nations to shut their land and air borders with Mali, as well as stop all economic trade and financial flows and transactions within the country to prevent the situation from deteriorating. ECOWAS also demands the immediate reinstatement of constitutional order in the country and called for the activation of the ECOWAS standby force, while a high-level delegation will again be dispatched to the country. In the meantime, Colonel Assimi Goita has declared himself leader of Tuesday's coup that ousted President Ibrahim Boubacar Keita. He had appeared among a group of officers on television today to announce the takeover. The soldiers said they had to act to prevent Mali from falling further into deeper chaos. The soldiers also say they have plans to set up a civilian transitional government and hold new elections. Before now, President Keita had faced weeks of protests as the opposition called on him to step down.
Protests in Mali have been growing for weeks, resulting in thousands marching through the streets calling for President Boubacar Keita to step down, despite international mediation efforts to resolve a political crisis. The political unrest began after the country's top constitutional court overturned results from disputed parliamentary elections, paving the way for Keita's party to occupy a majority of the vacant seats. Disputes over the polls have also sparked post-electoral violence in several districts in the capital and other towns in March. The discontent has also been driven by economic issues and young people fleeing with rising unemployment. Even regional body ECOWAS tried to wade in, sending a delegation made up of presidents of Nigeria, Ghana, Niger, Senegal and Côte d'Ivoire to President Keita to try to negotiate and end the political crisis. The opposition, a group called M5RFP, whose figurehead is Saudi-trained Muslim cleric Mahmoud Diko, said it would not quit the protests until President Keita steps down, raising concerns in neighboring countries of a protracted crisis. Things, however, took a swift turn late Tuesday afternoon when a group of soldiers surrounded Keita's home, detaining him and top government officials. It was the most quiet coup ever. Images later posted on social media showed Keita and Prime Minister Boubou Cissé in military convoy surrounded by armed soldiers, said to be at the Kati garrison. The state broadcaster went offline after the spate of detentions before coming back on air in the early evening. Confusion ensued as it was not clear who was leading the mutineers, who would govern in Keita's absence, or what the mutineers' motivations were. On hearing news of soldiers mutinying against the president, opposition supporters celebrated at Independence Square in Bamako. Gunfire had been heard in the morning at the army base in Kati outside of Bamako. Hours later, the confusion cleared as President Keita announced his resignation in a brief address broadcast on state television. Looking tired and wearing a surgical mask, recognizing what he called the moment of truth, he thanked the people of Mali for joining him throughout the years and announced the dissolution of the National Assembly and the government.
Let's now get some more insight into the situation in Mali. I spoke with a career diplomat, Ambassador Akin Fayomi, earlier on the implications of the coup in Mali. And I started by asking him why mediation efforts could not stop the military action.
This protest in Mali started way far back, early this year, after the parliamentary elections. But it really gathered steam in June, when the protesters took to the streets demanding the removal of President Keita over many allegations: corruption, insurgency, mismanagement of the economy, and so on and so forth. ECOWAS swung into action. I must give them kudos for that. And even our president during the pandemic, they all went to Bamako to try to mediate. And then former President Jonathan was appointed as a special envoy. He also has been shuttling, even at risk to his own self and others in his entourage. So I would not say that ECOWAS mediation failed. I would rather say that the protesters and the opposition parties, they were not appeased by what ECOWAS offered them in terms of a coalition government with President Keita. They didn't want that. And then the military also had their mutiny in the barracks over late payments, and then in solidarity with the protesters, and then the mutiny rolled into town and became a coup d'etat. So no blame to ECOWAS at all in this instance.
All right. It's not a blame issue, but at the end of the day, the military still did take over. The opposition is still demanding the president to step down at the moment. And where do the people stand in all this? The whole point of having the mediation is for democracy to be restored, because obviously coups are not fashionable any longer, if they ever were. How do you see the people being the biggest beneficiaries of what is going on right now?
Yeah, you are very correct. Coups are not no longer fashionable. If nobody wants to hear that, that's a backsliding of democracy, which we are trying to enthrone and grow in Africa particularly. Yes, the people started this protest under the leadership of the opposition, which they call the M5, led by one prominent preacher, Imam Diko. So it gathered strength, and the military also came in to stop the violence, because we were getting killings and all that. So the people are the ones that masterminded this coup, more or less. And I believe that we have seen this before. And if it is to their own benefit, if they don't like the rulership, the reign of President Boubacar Keita, and they could not work with ECOWAS mediation efforts, not necessarily not to work with it, but they were not getting what they wanted. They wanted outright dismissal of that government, which ECOWAS didn't want to do. They wanted to form a unity government. So the people, more or less, are the victors in a way, because the military had promised that they have called on all the CSOs and the civil society organizations, the opposition, all the stakeholders to join hands with them to form a civilian-military coalition, transition government, so to say, paving the way for credible elections to be held, even though there is no timetable for that. But they have invited the civilians, the protesters, the oppositions, to join hands with them into bringing peace into Mali.
All right. Now, we have the ECOWAS heads of government to hold an extraordinary summit on the situation there tomorrow. If you were to be in the room to advise, what way would you say they should take? Obviously, we have to outgrow hostile takeovers in this part of the world sometime. So how do you see this moving forward, Ambassador?
Thank you. Yes, even though I have actually been involved in one or two mediations in Guinea and all that, and I've been in the room with some of the ECOWAS leaders before. So it's easy to see the way forward. ECOWAS had said, of course, they have to impose sanctions. That is number one. It's against the principles of ECOWAS to bring down a government through military takeover, through military coup. So they had to do that, impose sanctions, remove Mali from all their functions, block economic relations, close the borders and all that. Then the way forward, they are going to, like you said, they are going to have a summit tomorrow. Apart from that, they are going to put together an ECOWAS delegation. I think it's going to comprise of presidents of Niger, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and they're going to go to Bamako, and they're going to engage the military government, and then take them on their words. To bring together the CSOs, the opposition, and look for a quick transition to civilian administration.
All right, former ambassador to France and career diplomat. Thanks a lot for joining us, Ambassador Akinfayemi, and for sharing that experience. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
In part two, after the break, Senate threatens to sanction federal government ministries, departments and agencies that failed to appear before its Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning to discuss their revenue projections. That will be in a moment. Do join us again. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Inspector General of Police orders rearrest of suspected serial killer who escaped from police custody in Oyo State, deploys intelligence and investigative teams. More civilians in Boko Haram captivity and some insurgents fighters escape and surrender to government forces following intense military operations and ongoing summary executions in the jungle. Economic Community of West African States holds extraordinary summit on Thursday on the situation in Mali after suspending the country from all its decision-making bodies. And at least 45 migrants, including 5 children, die in the deadliest shipwreck off Libya's coast this year. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories. Do subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms on Apple TV, Android, Fire TV, and Roku as well. Let's take another look at some security stories now, where civilians in Boko Haram captivity and some fighters are finding the courage to escape and surrender to government forces. Let's have a look at what the latest escapees look like.
Faces of experiences all around the camp. Each person here has a story. Some, like this young man, have lived violent lives. Others were held by the terrorists, the women forced to marry and have children. But today, everyone, fighters and victims, are here for the same thing: freedom. They all fled the Boko Haram clutches when it became unbearable, and have been under the care of the multinational Joint Task Force camp in northern Cameroon. Their stories are told with a mix of fear and relief.
You don't have to commit an offense before they execute you. If they don't see you in town for some days because you're in the bush trying to look for food, when you come back, they'll question you. And even when you explain, they don't accept. They just behead you. That's what they do.
The senior Boko Haram caught me because I went to a town called Kusumba. They tied me up and used a metal rim to keep my legs down, and they said they would execute me in the morning. Luckily for me, the rim fell that night and I dug a hole and escaped.
It's now a function of rehabilitation, and a delegation from Borno State, Northeast Nigeria, is here to make that happen.
We are here to see to ourselves, to ascertain what is going on, how many of them are truly the indigenous of Borno, how many of them are fighters, how many of them are not fighters, how many children and how many women. This is our first term of reference.
This is a strong indication of success, because in counter-insurgency operations, success is measured not just by the number of insurgents that we kill, but as well by the number of those that are surrendering, as well as a reduction in their recruitment base.
As the reintegration process commences, those abducted eagerly look forward to reuniting with their families. For the repentant fighters, there's a lot to prove, not only to the society, but ultimately to themselves, that the turnaround is for better.
Staying with security, troops of Operation Safe Haven deployed at the Bisichi Area Command of Barkin Ladi local government area of Plateau State have rearrested another prisoner that escaped from the Jos Correctional Center. The commander of the Joint Task Force, Major General Chukwemeka Okonkwo, says Malam Adam Yusuf, one of the 6 notorious inmates that escaped from the High Court Barkin Ladi on July the 23rd, was rearrested in an abandoned building at Bisichi village where he's been hiding. According to him, the 19-year-old inmate has confessed to being among the escapees, while concerted efforts are ongoing to rearrest the rest. He solicited information from the general public that could lead to the rearrest of the other escapees. And now to the National Assembly. Some federal government ministries, departments and agencies risk zero budgetary allocation if they fail to appear before the Senate to discuss their revenue projections as it concerns the 2021-2023 medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper. The Senate Joint Committee on Finance and National Planning issued the threat during an interactive session with representatives of FDAs at the National Assembly. Our correspondent Linda Akigbe reports.
Before the National Assembly proceeded on its recess, it received the 2021 to 2023 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and Fiscal Strategy Paper (FSP) from President Muhammadu Buhari for approval. The Senate Joint Committees on Finance and National Planning is convening this meeting with heads of federal government agencies to discuss the MTEF as well as the revenue targets of some of these agencies.
This document was put together by the executive, and we need all the head of agencies to come and defend what is before us. So any agencies that fail to appear with this head or the chief executive should as well know that for this year, 2021-2023, there is no budget.
The committee takes on the Comptroller General of the Nigeria Immigration Service to understand its revenue generation performance in the last 3 years. For 2020, the agency's revenue target is 23 billion, but it could only generate 5.7 billion naira so far because of COVID-19.
Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, we are only now, because the passport offices have been closed, especially within the period of the COVID-19, we just started opening the passport offices.
But committee members are displeased with the contract agreement with the private firm Quantec on the collection of payment for resident permits. They are concerned at the arbitrary increase in the cost of resident permits for foreigners and its implications for investment.
Actual revenue performance on resident permit was 20 billion in 2018. What did the Quantec collect that period? They collected 15 billion.
Out of the 20 billion.
Yes.
Lawmakers resolved to carry out an exhaustive investigation on the contract agreement between Quantec and Nigeria Immigration Service. The discussion on revenue generation is carried over to the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority (NCAA), and the representative of the agency tells lawmakers that the NCAA generated 18.677 billion naira in 2019, but contributed only 3 billion naira to the consolidated revenue account, a situation which raises the eyebrows of committee members.
Unless you justifiably make a good presentation, moving forward, we need to reduce your expenditure so that we can enhance the revenue in order to finance the deficit that we have.
The representative of the NCAA is asked to return on Thursday, August 20, with the agency's managing director, as well as the Minister of Aviation, to discuss, among other issues, what over 11 billion naira of the agency's budget for 2019 was expended on. Linda Akigbe, Channels Television News.
To politics now. Power supply will get to every household in Edo State over the next 4 years. And that's a promise by the People's Democratic Party governorship candidate, Governor Godwin Obaseki. While campaigning in Igwebe local government area, Governor Obaseki boasted that the state is second to none in Nigeria when it comes to power generation. He was joined on the campaign trail by the Delta State Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, who admonished supporters also in Igwebe Council area to protect their votes come September the 19th.
It's the turn of Igwebe local government area to host the PDP campaign team, canvassing support ahead of the 2020 governorship election. Different support groups ensure there is no dull moment at the venue. On the rostrum, the mood is no different. The campaign team underlines some achievements by the present administration. One of the party's chieftains, Chief Tommy Kimi, is confident that the PDP will sweep the entire Eastern land.
we have what we call the ESA agenda. And I assure you, we can only realize that ESA agenda if we support Governor Obaseki. Obaseki has done well. Yesterday, I went through a list of 14 projects successfully completed in ECOWAS.
Governor Obaseki asks for more time to complete his projects, including power supply to every household in the state.
In Ondo today, you have more electricity than we can consume. The problem we have is distribution. So this is our second term. We will now make sure that that light, that electricity, which we're already generating in Ondo, gets to every home in Ondo State.
The next stop is at Ekpon. Here, it's double delight for the PDP supporters as Governor Obaseki is joined by his Delta State counterpart, Dr. Ifeanyi Okowa.
Never come here and am satisfied that you are with the PDP. I know that people will come in and tell you that they will use money because some of our sons have missed roads on the other side. Some will say they will use thugs. Do not be afraid, because on the day of the election I'll be here.
This has been the PDP's campaign promise to the people. A vote for the PDP will translate into more economic development in the state over the next 4 years.
To be in Igwebe.
And still on elections, the Ondo State Police Command says it's not leaving anything to chance ahead of the local government elections on Saturday in the state. The Commissioner of Police, Ondo State Command, Bolaji Salami, says 5,000 officers have been deployed to provide security at the polls. In a statement today, the police commissioner says the command is fully prepared to forestall any incident that may arise, and this will be achieved if the Nigeria Civil Defense Corps and the Department of State Services all work together. When the news at 10 returns, Saudi oil minister sees global oil demand recovery to pre-pandemic levels in fourth quarter of 2020 as OPEC calls for more compliance with output cuts. And that's on Business News. Do join us again. Welcome back to the news at 10. Students in tertiary institutions across the country are protesting the continued closure of their campuses following the outbreak of coronavirus. Addressing journalists at the Unity Fountain, the president of the National Association of University Students, Felix Ijegalo, says if the government can reopen religious places, markets and airports, then their campuses should also be reopened. However, the protesting students were restricted to the Unity Fountain, and that did not go down well with them, as they insisted they cannot be intimidated.
We want the ministry to give us a propelling ground for our schools to reopen. Every sector in this country that people gather have been opened. Airports are planning to open. International flights. Marketplaces have opened because they pay tax. Transportation is working because they pay tax. All the financial institutions are working because they pay tax. But they have forgotten that the most important sector in this country is education. Yes. Because anybody who is telling the agencies, the law enforcement agencies, to drop us down and clamp on our voices should know that he was once a student. Most of them feel because their children are studying abroad, so they don't care about what happens in our country. People are proud, public servants are proud that our schools are locked down and they are going for convocations outside Nigeria. They are going for matriculations outside Nigeria. We are being intimidated that we cannot speak our voices, and then we are being told that if we step one foot, we will be shot. They will continue to shoot us. Every university student life matter. Yes. I don't know why this country is neglecting educational sector. We have sent letters severally for the ministry to brief us on the situation on ground. And all those letters were ignored. And now there's a protest and some people are going to have a roundtable discussion.
The Federal Executive Council has approved the revised estimate of 5 subsisting contracts for the secretariats in Anambra, Bayelsa, Osun, Nasarawa and Zamfara states. Briefing State House correspondents after the virtual EFEC meeting, presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari, the Minister of Works and Housing explained that the variation approved is 3.9 billion naira. It changes the full contract amount from 13.56 billion naira to 17.54 billion naira for the construction of the structures.
Cost of materials had altered significantly since 2011 when this project started, and we want to complete them. So these secretariats are necessary to enable us house federal workers in these states. The problem arose from the creation of states, new states. So in asset sharing, some of the old states took the old secretariat, and so our staff in those states across all federal ministries are either in rented official premises for their work or squatting in state government's premises.
And on his part, the Minister of the FCT says the Council also approved the rehabilitation of the Lower Usuma Dam Water Treatment Plant Phase 2 at an additional cost of 1.5 billion naira.
As you know, the water treatment plant is a very, very important infrastructure project. And the contract is to rehabilitate that treatment plant because it has been in operation for about 30 years. And it all fits into Mr. President's agenda of providing needed infrastructure and also rehabilitating already existing infrastructure.
Still on infrastructure, the River State government has approved the contract for the construction of a 6.5-kilometer road. The dual carriage road, estimated to cost 9.5 billion naira, is expected to reduce traffic and congestion, leading to the oil and gas-free zone. And this is coming from the State's Commissioner for Information, Mr. Paulinus Nsirim, during a briefing after the weekly Executive Council meeting in Port Harcourt, the state's capital.
This approval is in recognition of the infrastructural blueprint of the River State government and the urban renewal program. This project that has been approved will do the following for our dear state. We shall have a municipality expansion, as the road will open the state to a vast expanse of land which can be used for industrial and estate developments in the near future. This means that there will be an arithmetic increase in the ground rent revenue and taxes from this area in the near future. The road also opens a corridor which leads to the One port in Durama and the Port Harcourt refinery. And this has a far-reaching strategic advantage in the short, medium, and long term. As the project progresses, hundreds of River State indigents will be engaged and employed throughout the duration of the project. This road will reduce the traffic build-up usually experienced at Akbajo Junction along East-West Road.
The Group Managing Director of the NNPC, Mele Kyari, is optimistic about the capacity of the MPDC to become the biggest player in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria. The NNPC GMD made the disclosure during his visit to the MPDC flow stations in Benin City.
There is no ambiguity as to what the MPDC's core mandate is, established as a subsidiary of the NNPC. The MPDC is meant to meet about 40% of Nigeria's domestic LPG market demand for petroleum exploration and production activities. The Ondo flow stations, according to the NNPC GMD, has the capacity to deliver on its mandate.
This gas facility in particular will deliver at least 240,000 metric tons of LPG to the domestic market within a year. And that is a very significant fraction of the current level of supply into the market. It will ease the spending on foreign exchange by the country. And more importantly for us, we promise, Mr. President, that by 30th of October latest, we'll kick in this LPG into the domestic market. And we'll see at least 30 to 40 trucks of LPG loading out of our facility that we will soon be seeing.
The company has also a major stake in upping the ante in the area of power generation through its increased production capacity.
Today, the largest contributor of gas to the domestic market is NPDC, to power sector. And this is a national responsibility. It is a commercial venture, but it has a national outlook. Today, NPDC contributes about 1 billion scope of gas production to the entire mix of production in the country. A majority of this goes into the domestic market.
Purposeful leadership has been adduced as the reason for the upward trajectory of the NPDC production capacity lately, according to one of the top officials of the NNPC.
That makes it possible for things that appeared not to be easily accomplishable to have been accomplished in the last 1 year. They've moved from producing less than 100 barrels per day, 100,000 barrels per day, to about 300,000 barrels per day. That speaks volume. So I want to commend the current leadership of NNPC for being so visionary, providing leadership that makes it possible.
The visit ends at the Secretariat project of the NPDC, which is currently in the final stage of completion.
The Lagos Deep Offshore Logistics LADOL is working to diversify to a specialized economic free zone with focus in sectors ranging from technology, medicals and agriculture to create a circular economy within the zone. Now, this move also informed the partnership with the Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority as well as the private sector, a synergy that's expected to attract agriculture, drive job creation and contribute significantly to the country's economy.
Building prosperity for Nigeria and in turn building prosperity for the world isn't going to be a wishful thinking, but a clear and strategic work plan that delivers that much. The new man at the helm of affairs at the Nigeria Export Processing Zone Authority, Professor Desoji, seemed heavily guided by this, and so he's making this visit to LADOL on a familiarization tour. LADOL is the single largest 100% private, 100% Nigerian port facility and free zone development in Nigeria's history, leading to a $10 billion new investment and 50,000 new jobs, providing logistic and fabrication support base for the oil and gas industry. But there seems to be something new coming, just as the August visitor is about to find out.
Oil and gas needs cold storage, but we discovered, partly through discussions with MPA, that there is a shortage of cold storage for agriculture in Nigeria. We have cashew nuts being processed in Ghana, cashew nuts from Nigeria, processed in Ghana, exported from Ghana. Yam from Nigeria, processed in Ghana, exported from Ghana. So these things have to be processed and exported from Nigeria, and that's our major focus right now.
This is one area we'll be very happy to work with you in promoting, and also the very important aspect of a Greek free zone. I'm happy that you are also thinking in that direction. Like I told you when we were coming in, the cold stores that you've rightly thought of putting here is also very strategic to us. For the amount of fish we eat in the country is amazing.
The circular environment trajectory is a non-oil sector sustainability drive and will see a hub for clean technology, manufacturing of hospital equipment, sustainable garment factory, create about 1,000 jobs, upscaling academy, and bamboo fabrication.
We'll continue to invest and build more resources so that we can put an end to medical tourism, and Nigeria can become not just self-sufficient, but a major exporter into the region and the continent, taking advantage of the Africa Free Trade Zone Agreement.
Free zones or free economic zones is a key strategy for attracting investors and people to set up factories for industrialization and huge job creation. LADOL says it wants to lead the army of strong competition for Nigeria when eventually the Continental Free Trade Area kicks in.
Let's take a look at some more business news, and here's Anne Wilder.
Thank you, Ijoma. Hello and welcome to Business News. The Federation Accounts Allocation Committee has shared a total of 676.40 billion naira to the federal, states and local government councils as revenue for the month of July this year, which is 25 million naira higher when you compare it to the 651 billion naira shared in the month of June. Out of that amount, the federal government received 273.18 billion naira, 190.84 billion naira was allocated to the states. The local government councils got 142.7 billion naira, while 42.85 billion naira was distributed to oil-producing states as 13% derivation of mineral revenue. A communique issued at the end of its virtual meeting shows that the oil and gas royalty, petroleum profit tax, and value-added tax increased considerably, while companies' income tax, import, and excise duty all recorded decreases. And there's a good projection for the oil and gas industry. Global oil demand is expected to recover to pre-pandemic levels within the fourth quarter of this year. Well, that's according to Saudi Arabia's Energy Minister, Abdulaziz bin Salman. His comments are coming as OPEC Oil Plus members and the allies, including Russia, held a virtual meeting to review the group's output compliance levels in efforts to boost oil prices. But while calling for OPEC Plus to increase their compliance with oil output cuts, the Saudi Energy Minister says that projections from institutions such as the U.S. Energy Information Administration and the Paris-based International Energy Agency estimates the global demand for oil will reach about 97% of pre-pandemic level in the last 3 months of this year, which is, of course, a big recovery from the huge drop recorded in April and in the month of May. Just 1 year after Nigeria's border closure to neighboring countries in an effort to curb smuggling of prohibited items, a trade expert is now asking the government to reopen the borders. Speaking on our program Business Morning today, a trade expert, Dr. John Isemede, calls for the reversal of the policy to benefit Nigeria's balance of trade.
We host the ECOWAS Secretariat, and the major aim of ECOWAS is trade. And we assign the Continental Free Trade. We don't even have the soft or the equipment to compete. And if we now talk of benefit, what has been the benefit of the closure? So if customs say they are benefiting, what of the export side of it? For you to say balance of trade, balance of payment, it is not one side. Have we invested heavily in Apapa Port? So the last one is the MDAs, they have their responsibility. What and what? Have we invested in airline business? Are we importing port modernization? Then those who came on air, why are they crying now that they want to import maize? So, Mr. President and the National Assembly, give us a second chance.
About 18 billion naira, that's the amount added to the total value of equities on the NSE today, after gains from Tier 1 lenders pushed the market's overall performance further into positive territory. But let's hear more from Temple Ashaju.
Thank you for joining us again on the Stock Market Report. Investors maintained their positive stance in the markets today following their sustained interest in the banking stocks and some other companies with attractive returns. Now, this propped up the index by 14 basis points as investors gained over 18 billion naira. Zenith Bank was significantly traded a second consecutive session this week as investors maintain optimism on a possible announcement of interim dividend from the lender and some other Tier 1 names in the market. Now, this sentiment improved the banking stocks performance today coming ahead of the insurance sector after the release of a recapitalization guidelines by NICOM. Now, investors' interest in international breweries today was remarkable despite coming behind Studio Press, but Chemical and Allied Products, which is CAP, took the lead in terms of the laggards table. So far, this month of August has been positive by 1.9%, and the year-to-date losses trimmed to 6.2% amid currency pressures and, of course, the stability that we have seen in crude oil prices. And that's your stock market report. I'm Temple Ashaju.
And that's Business News Tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. It's back to you, Joma.
And there you see a fire at the Marian Market, Calabar, the Cross River State capital. Property worth millions of naira is reported to have been destroyed in the blaze which erupted this evening. This latest fire outbreak, nearly 2 months after the last incident at the same market, is what we see now. The cause of the fire is yet to be ascertained. At least 45 migrants, including 5 children, have either drowned or are missing after a boat carrying dozens of them capsized in the Mediterranean Sea off Libya. The boat had been headed for Europe when the accident happened, and it's said to be the largest number of fatalities in a single shipwreck off the coast of the North African country this year. The migrants, among them 5 women, 2 of them pregnant, said the boat engine had stopped working and they did not have any food or water. Alarm Phone, an independent support group for migrants crossing the Mediterranean, said it received a call on Saturday from someone on a migrant vessel, panicking and screaming that passengers were about to die. Alarm Phone said it alerted Libyan, Maltese, Italian and Tunisian authorities and provided them with relevant details on the boat. Now, the U.S. Democratic Convention continues as former Vice President Joe Biden is formally nominated to represent the party in the November presidential election. Among speakers on the second night of the convention, which was done mostly virtually, was his wife, Jill Biden, who took a swipe at the current president, Donald Trump. Here's Simon Pusey with more and Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. Joe Biden's wife, Jill, has said that President Donald Trump's attacks against her husband and his cognitive abilities are ridiculous. It's after Trump's 2020 re-election campaign released an advert combining clips of Biden with the aim of showing him appearing to lose his train of thought.
The majority of us have so much more in common.
The spotlight will now be fixed on Senator Kamala Harris, the first black female vice presidential hopeful, during the third night of the 2020 Democratic National Convention. Other headliners speaking on Wednesday night include former President Barack Obama. EU leaders are holding emergency talks to discuss the political crisis in Belarus, protests and a violent crackdown following the contested re-election of Alexander Lukashenko.
Honorable leaders of Europe.
Shortly before the meeting, Belarusian opposition leader Svetlana Tikhanovskaya urged EU officials not to recognise what she called fraudulent election results, saying Alexander Lukashenko had lost all legitimacy. The EU will also endorse a plan to sanction Belarusian officials who ran the disputed elections that resulted in an improbable landslide for Lukashenko, as well as those responsible for the violent political crackdown. Museums, nightclubs and karaoke bars have closed in and around the South Korean capital Seoul as COVID-19 cases reach a 5-month high. The country reported another 297 new cases, the highest daily figure since March. South Korea has been viewed as one of the world's coronavirus success stories, but a spike in new cases linked mostly to a church has sparked concerns of a wider outbreak. New Zealand has said it would increase the number of defence personnel at its quarantine facilities and border to beat any further spread of COVID-19, as it reported 5 new cases in the community on Wednesday.
That will bring the total Defence Force personnel.
Around 500 more people will be deployed, taking the total Defence Force supporting the response to around 1,200, the largest military contingent deployed since the early 2000s. German authorities are investigating if a series of car accidents that left several people injured on a Berlin motorway on Tuesday evening was an Islamist attack. An Iraqi man is said to have deliberately caused 3 crashes on the road near the centre of Berlin. 3 people were seriously injured in the collisions with the suspect's car. Prosecutors are investigating the attack as having either a political or religious motive, but they have not ruled out psychological issues either. The head of a Mexico-based evangelical church that claims more than 1 million followers worldwide has been ordered to remain in jail ahead of his trial.
I want to discuss an element that I believe is...
Narson Joaquim Garcia, leader and self-styled apostle of the Mexico-based church La Luz del Mundo, was ordered to remain in custody on charges of rape, human trafficking and child pornography. According to prosecutors, 5 victims, some of them minors, have alleged that they were raped or abused by Mr. Garcia, who denies any wrongdoing. A huge sinkhole has swallowed 21 vehicles after a road collapsed in southwest China. Video footage obtained by Chinese state media shows the moment cars parked near a shopping mall dropped into a huge sinkhole when the road in front of the building suddenly caved in. According to local media, no casualties were reported. The cause of the accident is under investigation. And finally, scientists racing to save the northern white rhino from extinction have harvested 10 more eggs in Kenya from the last 2 females alive. The scientists hope the harvest will help create viable embryos that can be incubated by other rhinos acting as surrogates. The northern white rhino is considered to be the most endangered mammal in the world, and neither of the remaining northern white rhinos on Earth, a mother and her daughter, can carry a baby to term. The method is risky, but scientists believe the research can help preserve other endangered species, even if it proves to be unsuccessful with the endangered rhinos. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon. Welcome to Sports News. In football, FIFA's Independent Ethics Committee has cleared the organization's president, Gianni Infantino, of any alleged breach of its code. Swiss authorities last month decided to open criminal proceedings against him to look into meetings between the FIFA chief and the Swiss Attorney General, Michael Luber. Luber and Infantino have denied any wrongdoing. Bayern Munich's relentless march through this season's UEFA Champions League continued as the German Giants defeated Lyon 3-0 to book an 11th appearance in the final of the competition. Serge Gnabry scored in the 18th and 33rd minute as the Bavarians ripped apart Lyon, who failed to take their chances early in the game. And that's it on Sports News. Ijoma, back to you.
Thank you, Olumide. And the main news again. The Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, today ordered the rearrest of a suspected serial killer who escaped from police custody in Oyo State. The IGP also deployed intelligence and investigative teams to assist in the manhunt. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thanks so much for staying with us. I'm Ijoma Bunyato. You stay safe and good night.